I was sitting in the driver's seat of my old Buick last Tuesday, the engine idling with that familiar uneven hum, waiting for the school bells to ring. The vinyl seat stuck slightly to the back of my neck, and the late afternoon sun was hitting the cracked dashboard just right, lighting up every scratch and faded button like a map of all the years that Car and I have shared. My granddaughter Maya is 16. Usually she's a hurricane, doors slamming, backpack dropped wherever gravity decides, headphones on so loud I can hear the bass from the driver's seat. She complains about a math test, a coach who doesn't get it, or some drama unfolding on an app I don't understand, and probably never will. Her energy fills the car before she even closes the door. But that day she just drifted into the car. She moves slowly, like someone underwater. She didn't reach for the radio. She didn't pull out her phone. She didn't sigh or roll her eyes or mutter under her breath. She just sat there, staring out the side window at a patch of dead grass by the curb, the kind that never seems to recover, no matter how much rain it gets. It wasn't a look of anger. It wasn't teenage rebellion or frustration. It was worse. It was the look of a light bulb that had flickered one too many times and finally just gave up. I tried the usual things. I asked if she wanted to grab a burger. She shrugged, barely lifting one shoulder. I asked if something happened at practice. She shook her head without looking at me. We pulled away from the school and drove through the neighborhood streets, past houses that all looked the same, trees that had seen generations come and go. We drove for 10 minutes in a silence so heavy I could feel it settling into my joints. The kind of silence that presses down on your chest. The kind you don't want to disturb but also don't know how to survive. Then right as we pulled into the driveway, she finally turned to look at me. Her eyes were wide, hollow in a way that didn't belong to someone so young, and she asked, very quietly, very calmly, "Grandpa, does any of this actually mean anything? Or are we all just taking up space until we're gone? I'm 78 years old. I've buried a wife, 2 brothers, and more friends than I can count on both hands. I've stood at gravesides in every season, under blazing sun, freezing rain, and snow so thick it muffled the sound of the preacher's voice. I've watched the economy collapse and rebuild itself under a new name. I've seen cities burn, both literally and metaphorically. I've seen ideals rise, fall, and quietly fade into footnotes. I've also seen how time eventually erases almost everything we think is permanent. And the terrifying part, I knew exactly what she was feeling. The difference is this: she's standing at the beginning of the road, looking at a blank canvas and wondering why she should even bother picking up the brush. I'm standing at the end, looking at a finished painting, wondering if the colors I chose were the right ones, or if I spent too much time worrying about how it would look to someone else. We live in an era that is absolutely obsessed with the big splash. You see it everywhere. Every screen, every headline, every success story packaged and sold. Success is measured by the size of your audience, the height of your building, or the reach of your impact. We're told from the time we can crawl that if we aren't changing the world, we're failing it. We're told that to matter is to be unforgettable, to be a household name, to be a disruptor, to be someone whose face stays on a screen long after they've left the room. But standing here at the tail end of my journey, looking back through the fog of decades, I've realized something uncomfortable. We've been sold a lie, a loud, shiny, exhausting lie. Let me tell you about a man named Silas. Silas lived in the apartment above the bakery when I was a young man starting out in the city. Every morning, the smell of fresh bread drifted up the stairwell, and every evening, Silas came home from his job at the post office. 40 years of sorting envelopes, 40 years of standing at the same counter, wearing the same kind of sensible shoes. He never wrote a book. He never held office. He didn't have a platform. He was a quiet man who wore wool vests, even in seasons when they seemed unnecessary. And he walked with a slight limp from an injury he never talked about. When Silas retired, there was no party, no speech, no gold watch, just a handshake and a cardboard box for his stapler and a few pens. He lived another 10 years in that small apartment, tending to the geraniums on his fire escape and feeding the stray cats that haunted the alley below. When he passed away, the local paper didn't even run an obituary. I went to his burial because I lived nearby. I figured I'd be the only one there besides the priest and maybe a distant cousin. I was wrong. There were nearly 100 people gathered at that graveside. Young, old, well-dressed, poorly dressed. I didn't recognize any of them. I started talking to a woman in a sharp business suit who was weeping openly. I asked how she knew Silas. She told me that when she was a runaway teenager living on the streets, Silas used to leave a sandwich and a thermos of hot tea on his fire escape every single night for 6 months. He never asked her name. He never called the police. He never lectured her. He just fed her until she found her feet. Then a man in his 50s spoke up. He said that 30 years earlier he'd been a clerk at the post office and had been caught stealing stamps to pay for his mother's medicine. Silas had seen him. Instead of reporting him, Silas walked over, put a hand on his shoulder, paid for the stamps out of his own pocket, and then spent every lunch break for a year teaching that man how to manage his finances. Story after story poured out. Small things, quiet things, a letter sent to a lonely widow who hadn't heard her name spoken aloud in weeks, a door held open when someone was having a hard day, a word of encouragement given to a kid who felt invisible. Silas didn't change the world in the way history books describe it, but he changed their world. He altered the atoms of their lives. We've got it all backwards. We think that mattering is a mountain you climb, a finish line you cross, where everyone finally agrees that you're important. But mattering isn't a mountain, it's the soil, it's the dirt under your fingernails. It's the invisible work that keeps everything from blowing away in the wind. When I was in my late 40s, I hit a wall. I lost my job. My health started wavering. I felt like a ghost moving through my own home, taking up space but not really belonging anywhere. One Tuesday, I was sitting on a park bench in the middle of the day, watching people rush past, convinced that if I disappeared right then, the world wouldn't skip a beat. An old woman sat down next to me. She was carrying a bag of birdseed. She didn't say hello. She just started tossing seeds. After a few minutes, she looked at me and said, "You look like you're trying to carry the whole park on your shoulders, son. It's a bit heavy for one person, don't you think?" I never saw her again, but that one sentence broke the spell. Did she change the world? Not to the news. To me, she saved it. We ignore the ordinary because it isn't flashy. But take the background noise away, and the song falls apart. I think about my wife Martha. She wasn't a CEO, she wasn't a scholar, but she had this way of really looking at you like you were the most important thing in the room. When she died, the house felt empty, not because her achievements were gone, but because that attention was gone. Attention is the most sacred currency we have. I told Maya she was looking at the wrong map. If you look at the stars, yes, we are small, but if you look at the person sitting across from you at the dinner table, you are a giant. Your life matters in the quiet choices, in staying, in listening, in not walking away when it would be easier to do so. The truth about legacy is that you don't get to choose it. You are building it every day. If you spend your life waiting to matter in a big way, you will miss the million ways you matter right now. I'm 78. I don't have many big splashes left in me, but I can still be kind. When I look back, I don't think about promotions or trophies. I think about interruptions that turned out to be life. Those moments felt ordinary then. Now they are the only things that feel solid. So if you feel invisible, take a breath. You don't need to be extraordinary to be significant. When Maya squeezed my arm that day, it took half a second. She probably forgot it, but I didn't. Did it matter? To the world? No. To me, it was everything. Thank you for listening. Being heard is a gift. Maybe today you can be that gift for someone else. Take care of each other. It's the only work that matters.